welcome back. Steph Granger here, and delighted to be in your ears for the next few moments, or your viewing pleasure for those of you watching this on YouTube. This is episode 10 of series 3, which means that I have been flying solo with the Just for Today podcast for 30 episodes. So if you are still here from the first episode to now, thank you. I'm extremely grateful that you are still joining me. And if this is your first time listening, hello, welcome. And if you have been in and out in that time, I'm extremely grateful for you too. Delighted, whoever. I've always said, if one person listens to this and it makes a difference to their day or their week or whatever, then I'm doing my job. So let's get into this week's episode. I posted in my WhatsApp group not that long ago, and if you don't know, I have a free WhatsApp community called the Just for Today community, OBS, and it's not the most, but sometimes it's busy, sometimes it's quiet, it's exactly what everybody needs it to be. But I posed a question a few weeks ago asking all of the ladies that were in the group, what would they consider to be their superpower? And it was one that some people struggled to answer and others found it really easy to answer. But it was interesting what came up as a result of it. So my superpower, as far as I can see and as far as I'm concerned, is my ability to use my voice with purpose. I'm here, hence talking to you now. I feel I have a message to share. In fact, I feel like my message has to be shared. And I don't mean that in, oh my God, I have to say this, as in I really do have to share this message. It's really important to me that I get this message across, because I would have been thankful for my messaging around 18 years ago. I know I would have been grateful to hear some of the things that I say now. Now that might sound a little bit like, do you know what? It's really interesting actually, as I'm saying that, the dialogue in my head is, all right, love, who do you think you are? You think you got something special to say? Isn't that interesting? I love my inner protector, or inner critic as other people have call it. I love her. I love how she shows up and says things to me, because it really gets me thinking about dialogue in my head and that noise that's really unhelpful now, but it's been sitting there for quite a long time. And if you listened to my episode last week, I was very much talking about the inner protector and why she shows up and her reason for being there. And as I was saying to you those words, I would have loved to have had me in my ears 18 years ago, that she immediately went, love yourself much? Isn't that interesting? Because of that conditioning we have, where I don't know if it's the same for boys. Like I've said before, I'm not a man. I'll never be a man. I don't know what it's like to be a man. So the conditioning is very different, female versus male. But the conditioning we have as females is, don't show off, calm yourself down, love. Who do you think you are? You know, all of that dialogue that runs through. And I know I used to say it, I used to think it about others. Certainly in my teens, certainly in senior school. Love yourself much? Look at her. Look at who does she think she is? All of those types of things. Like, I would have been definitely having those thoughts, if not saying them. And I don't have those thoughts about other people anymore. In fact, I love seeing women stand in their power and say, oh my God, I love myself, and own themselves. And in the main, I do the same. Like, I'm very comfortable in my skin, but that little inner voice of mine, that little inner protector, she still pops up sometimes and says, who'd want to hear you talk? Who do you think you are? Love yourself much? Stop showing off. And I know where the voice comes from, and that's a whole other episode, but that was a really interesting observation for me as I was just starting talking to you about what I'm going to talk to you about today. So one of the questions, like I said, in the WhatsApp group was, what is your superpower? And I believe my voice is my superpower. I really, really do believe that. And I am actively looking for opportunities this year to speak in a much bigger platform, in much bigger arenas, to get my message across. Because, as I say, I know personally that the knowledge and the skills and the experience I have all these years later would have helped me so much 20, 25, 18 years ago, as I was starting out as a parent, as I was navigating my way through some really difficult life experiences, I'd have loved to have had a little visit from Steph of the future to come in and give me a little bit of coaching, a little bit of G'ing up, a little bit of mentoring, a little bit of motivating. So that is why I feel like I do feel like I'm here to share this message, and my life experiences to date have shown themselves to me for that very, very important reason. So that is my superpower. But when I asked in the WhatsApp group to the ladies in there, what is your superpower? They found it a bit tricky to answer. Like I say, some people found it really easy, but what came after it was interesting. So they would say things like, well, I think the fact that I'm an empath is my superpower. But it also means that I absorb other people's energy, and it really drags me down, and I don't know how to protect that. And it can sometimes be really difficult for me to experience being an empath. And one of the things that I am very aware of myself, and things that I say to my clients, is with everything that's light, there's dark. We have to have night and day. Like I've talked about before, with feelings, we experience joy because we've experienced sadness. There has to be a balancing act here, doesn't there? And with superpowers comes a lightness and a darkness to that. It comes with its challenges, shall we say. So, using my voice for spreading my message, the challenge that could come with that could be somebody disagreeing with that and saying, no, I think you're talking a load of rubbish. And it's not happened, but my inner protector is always telling me it could happen. And there's that imposter syndrome that comes with it as well, isn't there? If I share my message, what if someone says, you're wrong, you're not good enough, who do you think you are? There's that element that comes into it as well. And it comes back to, for me, it always comes back to this inner protector and how we protect ourselves as well going forwards. So let's just say your superpower is that you are an empath. So for those that don't know what an empath is, I'll let you go off and Google that and actually get a clearer understanding. But my understanding and my feelings as an empath is energetically I can experience the emotions that somebody else that's in close proximity to me is experiencing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to be in the same room as them, because I offer Zoom sessions and I work on Zoom with clients all the time, and I can still feel their energetic, emotional experience that they're having as well. I can still clock the emotion that they're experiencing as I move through an experience with them, or an exercise, or if I'm taking them through one of my techniques. I can still read that. Now, being an empath is a beautiful thing, because you really do have the ability to support people with compassion and kindness. The challenges of being an empath is it can be extremely draining, and you can actually take on board that person's experience and make it your own if you aren't careful. And I learned this a very, very difficult way back when I became a doula and working with clients in vulnerable situations, and almost taking on that emotion and then getting extremely overwhelmed, extremely burnt out, and leaving absolutely nothing for me. So giving everything I had to that woman and her family, and having nothing left for myself. So when I talk about lightness and darkness, this is what I'm saying. It's a beautiful light that you can shine with your superpower. But the opposite end of the spectrum of that is the impact that that superpower can have on you, and how it can impact those around you as well. So if your superpower is, let's just say, using your voice, being a speaker, being a teacher, being somebody that holds workshops, being somebody that is in an educational field and does really well with it, it's a natural thing. It feels like you're at home when you're doing it. Potentially at the end of that day, you will feel extremely tired, worded out. And what I mean by that is there's nothing left. when I do a workshop, at the end of that day, I need about an hour to myself to just give my voice a rest, to collect my thoughts, to shake off that experience. Even if it's the most beautiful experience, I still need that space to be able to let go of that. So when I say about lightness and darkness, I want you to think about what your superpower or superpowers, because we don't all have one, we could potentially have 1, 2, 3, whatever. I want you to think about what your superpowers are and how you work with yourself or how you work with the darkness of that superpower, how you don't, or you call in your boundaries with it, how you put that self-protection around it, because it can be very easy to want to give, and then not support yourself in those situations. Also, I'd love to hear if you're finding this a challenge to think about what your superpower is, because again, I'm sure if I said to you, tell me all the things about yourself that you don't like, tell me all the things about yourself that you are struggling with and you would like to change. But if I ask you something like, what's your superpower? What makes you amazing? What do you excel at? What are you absolutely great at? What can you do in a way that nobody else can do it? I'm wondering how that's landing with you as well, because like at the start for me, as soon as we start, I don't know, I'm generalizing here, this may not be the case for you, but I'm going to assume for some of you listening, this will be happening for you. As soon as you start to think about, oh, what am I great at? What am I amazing at? How do I inspire others? That inner protector voice, or as I say, inner critic that some people would call it, what is she saying? What is her dialogue that's coming up as a result of you thinking about ways in which you shine your light in the world? Does she ask you to dim it just a little bit to fit in? Does she ask you to quieten down a little bit there, darling? Come on now, love. Let's not be too much of a showy, or as my dad used to say, a rosy posy. I mean, you know, when I think about it, it wasn't particularly helpful, right? And my conditioning from a young age, for me and my sister, was that girls don't stand out from the crowd. They do behave in a ladylike way. They don't get all showy and rosy-posy, and actually it's just about being respectful of yourself and as a woman, right? As a woman, it is, and do you know what? I adore my dad. I'm going to throw this in here quickly. I adore my dad, and everything he did was from a place of fear, and I know that to be factual, of maybe us standing out from the crowd and maybe someone wanting to hurt us or laugh at us or make fun of us as a result of that. I know that that is fear-based parenting, and a lot of us, me included, lead with fear-based parenting, or certainly have done in the past, because of the fear of what if somebody notices your child or whatever. But equally, there was also that timing of when I was a child in the 80s of children are seen and not heard. There was a behaviour around that, but being two females who were definitely treated differently to my brother, who was older, of it being okay to stand out, of it being okay to excel, of being okay to say, I'm brilliant at football, I'm brilliant at cricket, and yeah, you are, son. You know, there was very different styles of parenting for boys versus girls, which is changing, I am delighted to say, and teaching your children to absolutely be the advocate for themselves and notice their skills and say how brilliant they are. You know, my kids walk around all the time saying, look how good I look, I'm amazing, I'm just doing so well, and I love that about them. But my inner critic, my inner protector still shows up and goes, Christ, love yourself much? Because of that programming, that voice that's sitting there, that programming of, shh, just play it a little bit small, just, you know, quieten it down a little bit, because, you know, what if people judge you? What if people laugh at you? What if you stand out and somebody isn't very kind to you? So I'd love you, just for today, to recognise your superpowers and just spend some time getting curious about this. What do you bring to the world that nobody else does in the same way that you do? ask some of your closest friends, what do you think my super, if you're struggling with this, ask some of your closest friends, what is my superpower? I would love to hear what your answer to that question is. And of course, you can come over and do that in my free WhatsApp community, and you will find a link to that community in the show notes. You can communicate with me via Instagram. I'd love to hear on Instagram as well. A new thing I'm starting this week on my Instagram is I will be live every Tuesday, possibly Mondays. I'm just working out my schedule now, just discussing what I've been talking about in the podcast this week, and any questions you want to ask me, any observations, any insights that you have as a result of things that I'm saying. So you can come and do that over on Instagram as well, Instagram Live. And of course you can email me as well, steph@stephgranger.co.uk, if you would like to message me that way as well. And of course, just a little reminder here that if you do want to come to my in-person event in Chelmsford on the 27th of June, tickets are still available. They are selling, and I will be limiting the tickets to 25 to make sure the group is beautiful and intimate, yet still collaborative and community-based. So I would love to have you join me. And again, all information can be found in the show notes. But one thing I will definitely be doing that day is getting every woman in that room to shout loud and proud and tell me everything about themselves that they are so, so proud of, and what their superpower is. So until next week, thanks for joining me today.